Okay, well, we welcome you tonight. We apologize for the delay, but I'm Joni Reed. I'm in Ohio, and I am and so excited about tonight. I actually have been an avid gardener all my life, but there's always things to learn, and I'm really excited to hear some of the tips that we're going to get tonight. I'm sure that each one of you, whether you are a brand new gardener or whether you have been gardening a long time like myself, I'm sure we're going to learn and be able to encourage one another. So without further ado, I want to share or just introduce Rita to you. Rita, go ahead and share. Whoops. Lexi, if you can mute yourself. Mute her. I muted her. Okay, Rita, why don't you go ahead and share what you're going to share, and then I'll go ahead and try to also go back and get this into our Facebook event.
Sure.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay, I'll go ahead and jump right in. My name is Rita. For anyone who doesn't know me, I live in central Kentucky. And I, by no means, am some kind of expert gardener. In fact, most of what I know comes from my father, who is our guest speaker tonight. But before we dive into his part, the part I wanted to share was just to talk a little bit about what you could still be planting at this time of year, because you might know that a lot of people start their gardens, they start their planting, you start receiving seed catalogs as early as December and January to order seeds, and then you're starting seeds in February, March, and putting stuff in the ground in late March and in April and stuff. So there are still plenty of things you can be planting if you have not started anything at all at this point. And the real things to consider, because I know that not everyone on this call is going to be in the same situation as far as weather is concerned, rain and heat and those things. But just to look at what your next, what your days are, like what does your summer look like? How long is that? Where we are, you can count on about 3 months, June, July, and August of hot weather. So that's what you've got left at this point. So you want to think about your crops that you can get in, get their roots established, so that once you get to the point where maybe there's not going to be much rain happening, you can mulch them and help hold that moisture in the ground. So some of the things like that we're just getting in our garden here, which we have about a 1/4 acre garden outside that my husband and I keep with my parents. So it always ends up being in excess, but we do put a lot of things up and then we give a lot of things away. But my dad just got in our tomatoes that he had started in under lights, put those in the ground this weekend. We got our sweet potatoes in this week, and that's something you can still be planting. And suggestion from my dad was to look for the bush variety, because other varieties, you might see the plant poking up out of the ground right here, and the root of the potato is going to be way over here. You can't even see my hand on the screen. Whereas the bush variety, they're going to be a little easier to dig up because they're going to be in close proximity. But you can plant things like your cucumbers right now. Squash will still do well. Green beans are something we're getting in, and I think your melons are still going to do well for the most part right now. And I can't remember, did I say peppers or not? I know our peppers have even tended to thrive better in the drier, hot weather towards the end of the summer. That's when they seem to kind of come on. So those are things you can definitely still be getting in. Now your cold weather crops, you'll probably have to wait and try them again, like your cabbage and your broccoli, Brussels sprouts. That will probably have to wait till it starts to cool off in the fall. Even your white potatoes, you could go ahead and try for that now. Usually they go in a little sooner than this point of the year. And then your lettuce greens, if you haven't already done them, if you're looking to get into your hot weather in the next couple of weeks, which, well, we've had a weird May here in Kentucky, but otherwise we know by June it's pretty hot out. So the lettuce that we have flourishing in our garden right now, I actually picked some and ate a salad for supper tonight. It'll only hold up so long before it starts wilting, and the heat just won't hold up for it. So you'll have to wait probably to plant some more lettuce greens until late summer when it starts to cool off. So that's my little tidbit for tonight. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to my dad, James Dixon, who's going to be sharing several tips with us tonight, and for outdoor gardening, which is something he's done his entire adult life, but he did alongside his father, my grandpa, you know, through childhood. And he'll also share a little bit of his insight on how they do indoor gardening with the tower garden, and why he does do that now versus not really being on board with it initially. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, and you take it from here.
Well, thanks, Pete. Can everybody hear me? Yeah? Okay. I guess you could say that I've been a gardener nearly all my life. When I was 6 or 7 years.
Hold on a minute.
He muted himself. You muted yourself.
Uh-oh.
No, sorry, that was
Okay.
me. That was me, sorry.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
Go ahead,
I'm sorry. Anyway, I was in the garden when I was fairly young, and with my grandma, Mom. We called her Moms, and my brothers and I were pulling weeds, and I remember Moms telling us that a well-designed machine could outproduce the efforts of 10 men as she was working circles around us. Well, her well-designed machine was a garden hoe. Anyway, I need to make a couple disclaimers before I get rolling here. The first is I respect everybody's time, so I'm going to try to stay with a certain script that I have. When it comes to gardening, I could probably talk for a 3-hour podcast. And obviously, that's not the design of tonight's program. In fact, Susan's over here with a electric cattle prod, in case I get off script. And I wouldn't take that too seriously, except earlier this evening, I saw her putting in a fresh set of batteries. So I'm going to stick to that. Now, the second disclaimer is I'm not an expert. By no means. I just have been doing this for a while. I've developed my own kind of way of doing stuff. But the reality is I've been exposed to a lot of different people. So what I do is almost like a tapestry of different people who have influenced me, and then some of my own experimentation. My formal education was a degree in natural resources from the Ohio State University. Back in the early 70s, the EPA was only a few years old. So at that point, the environmental studies at Ohio State were part of the College of Agriculture. So in addition to some of the basic sciences like biology and chemistry, I also studied agronomy, botany, hydrology, and other ag classes like that. But probably more important than my classroom work was my exposure to my dad. He was a devoted organic gardener over 50 years ago. So I grew up with a compost pile, spreading manure, and mulching to conserve soil moisture. But the key to all this tactical information was the understanding that when healthy, the soil is a living ecosystem teeming with microorganisms that work in harmony to feed and produce strong and vibrant plant life. My dad would always say, "Take not from the good earth what you don't return 2 or 3-fold." For 40 years, I've been an avid organic gardener, producing much of what our family eats. This year, with the cold, wet spring, our garden has been a challenge. Soggy, unworkable soil, delayed plantings, multiple late spring freezes. But you know, unpredictable weather is all part of the ups and downs joys and frustrations of gardening. You just take it in stride and do the best you can. Some years are just better than others. Thanks to covering with tarps on multiple nights, our early salad greens, broccoli and cabbage survived, but just barely. We're finally starting to catch up on some of our later plantings of tomatoes, peppers, beans, and sweet potatoes, as Rita alluded to earlier. For a guy like me, you learn to love it for what it is. Now, for those of you who are tuning in tonight and considering trying to garden organically, my first suggestion is a paradigm shift in your thinking. If organic gardening were a movie, the soil would be the star. The plants, just the supporting cast. My number one priority is to feed and grow my soil. Then the soil in turn feeds and produces healthy plants. We do this by adding organic matter, compost, manure, cover crops. We add those to the soil on a regular basis. Soil life, everything from earthworms to microbes you can't even see, then work at breaking down this organic matter and slowly release water-soluble nutrients for plant uptake. Keep in mind, this growing of your soil is a process that takes time. In my case, it's been a lifelong endeavor. Initially, my garden was so rocky, one of my kids claimed, and it wasn't Rita, that we graveled our quarter-mile drive with stones from our garden. On the upside, there is the satisfaction of knowing that even when we have a crop failure, which we all do at times, whether it's from drought, early frost, hailstorms, whatever, there's this satisfaction of knowing your efforts at growing your soil advances on nonetheless. A fantastic source of information on organic growing is the Rodale Institute, located in Emmaus, Pennsylvania. With the 1948 publication of J.I. Rodale's Pay Dirt, a book that links chemical agriculture with the declining public health, he became the head of the modern organic movement. I mean, he was a visionary. 75 years ago, he was predicting or already seeing the problems with some of our chemical-based agriculture methods that were only gaining ground after World War II. We can put the website of the Rodale Institute in the chat notes for those that are interested. Healthy soil equals healthy plants. And healthy plants are your number one protection against garden pests. Like anything in nature, predators prey on the weak. More than likely, when you first start gardening organically, the soil, it may not be in bad shape, but it's going to need some work. So you may need some help in controlling bugs and disease. The mantra here is to do no harm. Most of the garden sprays at your neighborhood garden store are not just deadly to a broad range of pests, but to beneficial insects and soil life as well. When I need to deal with a pest outbreak, I prefer to use biological sprays that target a specific pest. A great source for these items is a company called Gardens Alive. They're located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, and we can put their web address in the chat notes as well. These products may be a little more expensive, but they're organic friendly. And so if you want a living soil, it's important that you don't short circuit that with stuff that's going to kill those organisms. A simple practice that helps avoid pest outbreaks is rotating your crops, meaning changing the location in your garden where you plant a specific item from year to year. Also, just being observant, spending time in your garden can pay dividends, such as noticing and eliminating a few bugs before they mature and reproduce, ending an infestation before it even starts. I enjoy just being in the garden sometimes in the evening. I'll grab my hoe, don't even have to do any weeds, but just stand there and look and listen. Here's another helpful guideline I learned years ago when it comes to transplanting plants. And that is, if you have a $5 plant, dig a $10 hole. Make sure when you plant, especially perennials, take time to dig a hole much larger than the root ball. Then backfill it with a good mixture of compost or manure and soil. Then water it liberally. Most of the roots are often disturbed when transplanting. So it's also a good idea to pinch off some of the lower leaves. Otherwise, the plant's need for water will outpace the ability of the shocked roots to provide it. And this will lead to unnecessary stress on your young plant. For example, if I transplant a tomato seedling and it has, let's say, 6 to 8 leaves, I'll pinch off 4 or 5 of the lower leaves before I plant it. It's also another good idea is to acclimate your young plant seedlings to full sunlight by setting them out in partial shade before you plant them. Like put them underneath a tree that has where the sun will kind of cross over and it'll be in the sun for a little while, then it goes over the tree and it'll be some shade there. If you don't have time to do that, you can also, once you plant them, you maybe try to put something over them for a day or two. And it can be something as simple as opening up and placing some lawn chairs over your new transplant. That'll just give them enough protection. So, with all this talk of my love of the soil, and to me, that is the heart of it when it comes to a garden. Around 5.5 years ago, Susan came to me and suggested we get an aeroponic tower garden. Yeah, aeroponic, air, no dirt. I must confess, I was less than enthused. I'm a dirt under the fingernails kind of guy that loves to get his hands in the soil. I recall telling her that I had no problem with it, but it was her project, and I would continue with my garden. Thank you very much. Our new tower arrived around Christmas, and Susan had it set up, planted, and operational shortly after the new year. I distinctly remember it being a cold day in February, already dark by 6 p.m. I was standing in my living room, picking my first fresh salad off the tower. My opinion of this device changed forever that evening. How cool was that? Eating salad greens picked moments before in the dead of winter. No bugs, no sweat, no praying for rain or sunshine. In less time, less space, less water. It was like, game over, man, game over. I was sold. A couple months later, I was actively involved with Susan in selecting the seeds and planting the tower for another go-round. Yeah, even this old dog can learn a few new tricks. Bottom line, what's not to like about a tower garden? While my organic garden will always be my first love, it can be fickle and subject to limitations. We've already discussed the uncertainties of weather, but not everyone has space for a traditional garden either. A tower garden works great outside on a patio, deck, even a balcony. For folks like us who have a garden, our tower garden with lights works great indoors for greens and herbs in the off-season. In fact, by the end of June, our salad greens in the garden will be played out and ready to till under, and it'll be too hot to replant till this fall. Not to worry with our tower garden. We'll plant it probably in early June with the same seeds we use in the garden and have fresh salad greens all summer long. To be honest, we haven't had to worry about lettuce recalls for years. And that's because we know exactly where our greens are coming from. And most of the time, it's our living room. Take it from this lifelong gardener. The tower garden, in my opinion, is the best kitchen appliance innovation since refrigeration. No doubt my moms would have called it a well-designed machine. God bless. And now I'm going to turn it over to Leslie, who wants to share a little bit more detail about the tower garden and why it's just so cool.
Yeah, thank you, James. I took some notes while you were talking. I loved the don't take from the earth, but you're not going to put back threefold. And I did not know that about transplanting, something $5 plant, $10 hole. I say all these things because I have the black thumb. I can't garden. I have never gardened. The only reason that I found out about these aeroponic gardens was because of the company's whole food product. It's called Juice Plus, and it is a whole food supplement. It is for healthy living and help us getting more produce in. So I had no desire to look at this garden that you talk about because I knew I would just kill it. But so many people were saying how easy it was that I thought, well, maybe I should give it a try. And so I'm going to show you all what a tower garden looks like and if I did okay or not with my growing. So here's my garden, and I've already harvested quite a few things. This has been planted since November, and my son never leaves the cherry tomatoes long enough for me to get a ripe one. But you can see we've even got cherry tomatoes inside. Now I wouldn't suggest doing cherry tomatoes inside with your tower garden because as you can see they get quite tall and they do need some red spectrum of light from the sun. So yeah, you don't want to mess with these guys inside normally. So let's talk about this garden here. He talked about how it uses less water, less space, and it grows fast and such. So specifically, the University of Mississippi wanted to do a study on this. And they found out through testing regular traditional crops in the soil against the tower garden. And they found that it uses 98% less water. And I'll show you why here. There is the area where you put your water in that stays in the base of this drum. And there's a pump that takes it up through the tower. And then it waters into a shower cap, kind of down through the middle where all of the roots are in here. Okay, so it reuses this water. It doesn't go out into soil. So that's why it uses less water. And this is so important for our world today because traditional gardening actually uses about 80% of our water resources. And as you can see, it takes up about 90% less space. I've got 20 plants here on this, or 20 plant holes on this tower. And it's taking up about 3 square feet of space. If you were to do that outside, it would take up 90% more space. And it produces 30% more yield, depending on the crop, but that was the average for the things that they tested. And it is also safe and nutritious. James talked a lot about how we are using our soil as our number one thing we got to worry about, making sure that everything in there is what's going to make us get a healthy plant back, something that actually has nutrients back into our body. That's what makes our health, right? So NASA helped develop the mineral blend that is used for this tower garden. And I've got the minerals here. They just come in a jug like this with an A blend and a B blend. And talk about easy, Miss Black Thumb over here. I spend probably once a week coming in here and checking the water level and checking the pH and checking if it is needing any minerals. I only add minerals if I add water. I mean, I don't have to watch it for the insects, for the pests like James talked about. So we wanted to definitely share with you a little bit more about this convenient way for gardening. And like James said, year round, I had cherry tomatoes, my first time of having a tower in February. So that was insane. And we are just really glad, James, for you sharing with us more about, you know, what we can be starting now and what things to be doing. I'm going to try. I've been wanting to do root vegetables for a long time. Have not had the courage to do so, but maybe with some guidance and the resources you provided, I can do that. If anybody didn't catch that, it should be in your chat. They put in the links for the resources that you can find there, and we'll put them in our Facebook group as well. If there's anybody that had any questions about anything, we will take some time here to answer those. And if not, then we'll have somebody wrap us up. But
I'll go ahead and throw a question out there and give anybody else a chance to think. Again, back to, you can ask anything that had to do with the tips that were given with outdoor gardening, or if you have tower garden questions. But I know a question we often get in regards to the tower garden, since James was talking about organic gardening, is, well, you're putting this mineral mix or whatever this A and B stuff is into the tower. It's not growing in soil, you said, because it's actually grown in these rock wool pods. There is no soil. So are the vegetables on it considered organic? So I know I was talking last night to James about it, so my dad about it. So if you want to go ahead and kind of address that just in a brief way to explain how that works.
Well, can people hear me? You have to understand that the term organic, when it was coined back in the late 40s, it was everything about soil. And that whole movement with J.I. Rodale and then his son, Robert Rodale, it was about improving soil health and how that was the real key to healthy food. When you remove the soil from the equation, the term organic really doesn't apply anymore. And one of the counter arguments always when we get in discussions with people about organic versus conventional food is that, well, when a plant takes up these molecules, these elements into its roots, they're just chemicals. I mean, Dow Chemical, I think used years ago, or Monsanto, one of them, had this commercial that life is chemicals. And so while what's going into the roots has already been broken down into its elemental forms. It's how it gets there. And what does it do when it's not being taken up? And so once organic is that it's slow release from organic matter, where more conventional farming methods is you put water-soluble chemicals into the ground and then it soaks up. And one of the problems we have with our modern agriculture is agriculture pollution. That's where the algae blooms come in our lakes and stuff because of the runoff from rain. So really, when you ask, is a tower garden organic? it, 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 you're missing the point of what organic really is. Organic has everything to do with the soil. There's no soil. I don't know if that helps answer your question, but it really, when people ask that, the question doesn't really even apply from a scientific point of view and understanding organic gardening and farming since I was a boy.
Thanks, James. And does anyone else have another question they would like to ask James or Leslie or anyone else?
Well, I did see Laura asked it and you responded sort of, Joni, about what do you recommend growing in a tower? And I think a few of us could answer that, but like you kind of indicated, Joni, it all depends on if you're growing indoor or outdoor. As Leslie said, she grew the cherry tomatoes on it indoor. It's usually not recommended because something like a tomato plant needs room to spread out, and there's actually a cage that you can buy as an addition to your outdoor garden that kind of helps for something like that, or a cucumber plant has things to hold onto. So really the limitations of a tower garden are really just root vegetables because it doesn't have soil to grow down into. Although I saw somebody grow individual radishes in those pods once. Indoor use, okay, I see you said indoor. I only use mine indoor at this point, and so I primarily do grow greens. I grow kale. I've done spinach. I know several people here have done celery. I did it for the first time just this last growing. Let's see, bok choy is one. We do a lot of herbs. I love mustard greens to add a little spice to my salads. So really it's like my salad bar, but that's part of what I just prefer. I do know the other, I don't know, Joni or Jill, anybody else that something you've grown inside that you might throw out there.
Yeah, Rita, I'm not sure whether you said Swiss chard. I love Swiss chard because that's in the spinach family, and I especially love the rainbow Swiss chard. My tower garden's in the back, and I just wanted to point out that with our new lights, I turned it off so you guys could see, but with our new lights, you can actually touch the lights and move them around. So it's just an awesome, great way. Laura, if you want to grow indoors, you absolutely want to have the lights. And our new tower garden home comes with the light system and is really a little bit smaller than it's 13 gallons versus 20 gallons. And it also is a 2 feet circumference versus 3 feet. Takes 13 gallons of water versus 20. So it can fit anywhere you would have it, like an end table. And I have had, I'll just share just a little bit, and then if you have other questions, we'll let you answer or ask them. I actually started tower gardening. I was like James. I was an organic dirt garden. I cannot wait until the weather breaks to dig in the dirt. I want to sit in the dirt. I want to be in the dirt. And so I, too, I've been with the Juice Plus company for, I've taken the product for over 23 years. So when they came out with the tower garden, I was very skeptical. I was like, I'm not buying one of those. And I'm probably not going to sell them because I'm not going to have one to show, right? Well, I decided after about 6 months, I don't know, it was what I was hearing from other people, that, yeah, I needed to experience this. And so when I bought the first one, this is actually it. I've had it for, I guess, however long they've been out, I think almost 8 years. And the first one that I had, I grew outside because we didn't have our lights. And I will tell you, some of the things that were like this aha moment, James talked a little bit about it, was we had the droughtiest summer. And my dirt garden was suffering so badly. And my tower garden outside, sitting on my deck, was just flourishing. And it dawned on me, oh my gosh, this controls the water. I don't have to worry about a drought. And for the most part, we're going to have some sun in the summer, so it was getting the sun. Well, now indoors, not only is it totally given the right nutrients, I didn't have to worry about the soil, the right amount of water, the right amount of lights, and it's all on timing. I can fill this thing up, put my plants in it, and go on vacation for 2 or 3 weeks and come back, and it's overflowing. It's that simple to really take care of. So I became an avid tower gardener. And I can tell you the one thing personally, I don't plant in my dirt garden anymore are my lettuces and my herbs, because the taste of the lettuce, plus we don't have to worry about the sun and the bolting, does not happen. It does happen eventually. Maybe after about 3 months, 4 months, you'll have to replant some of your greens. But my kale and parsley and basil and Swiss chard will literally keep growing for over a year until I just need to take it apart and clean it and refresh it and start over. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that. And then we'll just end it tonight with, if there's anyone else has a question, I still want to open it up for that. And if not, what we'll do is we will place this recording on our Facebook event page so that if you came in a little bit late, you will be able to listen back to some of the things James talked about at the beginning. But I also want to invite you to, every month, our team does what's called One Simple Change, and we do it the last Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of the month. The dates for that this month are May 26th, 27th, and 28th. And if you want an invite, if you just say yes to it, you can actually come in and view. We do a live Facebook event. We talk about the Tower Garden as part of it, but we talk about our other Juice Plus Whole Food products. We share stories, we share research, videos, and you are welcome to view that. Then usually we leave it up for about a week. And so we'd like to invite you to that. And we want to thank you for getting on tonight. And I'll give one last chance. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, James. Thank you, Leslie, for sharing, Rita. And thank you all for joining us. God bless and have a good night's sleep.
Yes,
Happy
and
gardening.
thanks everyone for getting on. And if you know anybody that was planning to watch from Facebook, you can let them know that I put a post up, but we'll get this recording up there so they